Good afternoon, Professor Jones. I'm Matt. You know me. Today I'm going to be talking to you about my unit plans I was doing. Um, Tell you off the bat, which standard I chose, which Common Core I chose was PL 041.1.8. And this one states that students will identify behavior choices, tobacco, alcohol, or illegal drug use that result in negative consequences. So I designed this whole week, the whole unit for the whole week around this theme of students will identify behavior choices that will result in their negative consequences. Um, First off, on my lesson on Monday, I'm going to talk about alcohol. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm going to be talking about illegal drugs. And Thursday and Friday, I'm going to be talking about tobacco. I'm doing a 6th grade level unit plan to last 1 week or 5 days. Um, the major content of the lesson I'm going to be presenting is alcohol and the negative effects on the body. The length of the lesson will be 60 minutes, and I'm going to break it down for you how I'll run my lesson. Oh, and my unit title is Negative Consequences of Behavior Choices. Um, the context would be students should be able to know and understand that drinking will lead to negative consequences and effects on the human body. We will explore why some people still choose to drink alcohol and what kind of effects long-term alcohol use will have on an individual. Lastly, we will discuss how people who drink alcohol tend to behave in public settings or at home, whether they become abusive or whether they are quote-unquote normal drinkers. Starting off the class, I would go straight to the warm-up. I'm going to have a bell ringer, quote-unquote bell ringer, every day of my classes, and I'm going to ask the students to write a little something or to answer a couple questions that I put on the board for them every morning when they come in so they can get focused as soon as they get in class. After the bell ringer, what I'll do normally is come right out with some class discussion. We want guys and girls to want to be able to express how they feel about situations, be able to tell stories about what they know or who they know that's had problems with alcohol or any other drugs or tobacco. So I'll open up with class discussion about alcohol and the negative consequences that it holds. The next thing I would do in my lesson, I would spend about 15 minutes in the class discussion after spending about 5 to 10 minutes on the bell ringer. The next thing I would get into, I would get some small groups or some partners paired up, and I have a worksheet or a handout / assessment on the negative effects of alcohol, and I'd have another handout on the BAC chart, the blood alcohol chart. These charts will be a good way for the students to learn how alcohol really does affect the bodies. On the BAC chart, they'll be able to see that one beer affects an individual this much, and so on and so forth down the line. And at the end of my class, I'm going to spend another about 15 minutes on an article that we will be reading in class together. Going over this article, we would want to ask questions about certain things that come up in an article. And then in the last 5 minutes of class, we would review information that we've covered, mainly the main topics of what we've been talking about. Using technology in the classroom, most of my instruction will be direct instruction through note-taking. So I'll either be doing it on overheads. They have the new technology now where you can write and it projects onto the screen. I would probably use that quite a bit for my students. I'd always want to cite my sources correctly, do everything correctly when it comes to presenting the information to the students, and I'm being ethical with my use of the technology. I want to use data to show these students and really pound in the emphasis of what alcohol, drugs, tobacco, using hard data to make these students realize the effects, the negative effects that alcohol, tobacco, and drug use has on individuals. Mainly my instructional strategies or models of teaching. I'm going to be doing a lot of direct instruction or class discussion. Mainly, I'm a firm believer that students feel more engaged in class when they can be active in the lessons. So another thing, I will always try to develop my lessons to relate to the life experiences of the students. You never know what kids have gone through, what they could be going through. I would ask a simple question like, who do you all know that uses alcohol? How does their behavior change when they're drinking? If you have parents, friends, or relatives that drink a lot, how do you observe them when they're drunk? Another thing I would also try to do is use various perspectives for my students. Imagine that, just put them in a situation that they might not be used to. If I were to say to my students, imagine that you're in a home with a full-time alcoholic, I would ask them the question of what type of things do you think you would see? And then most students probably wouldn't be used to having a full-time alcoholic at home. Now some students do see that, unfortunately, but you just got to develop these lessons around various perspectives of the students. Another thing, I always want to keep my lessons aligned with standards. These standards right here are very important in driving home the main points of my lessons. So at the end of the day, I want these students not only to be able to say drug use is bad or alcohol affects our bodies, it damages our liver. I want them to be able to say what behavior choices that will result in these negative consequences. So being able to choose the right friends to go out with, being able to identify when you see something you don't want to indulge in going on, going to a party if you're in high school or middle school where there's underage drinking going on, you would be able to identify that you do not want to associate with those people. You want to make the right behavior choice, do the right thing. These health lessons are all about pounding this in, that these kids learn this for life. That way they don't get peer pressured into smoking a joint or drinking, taking a shot. They should be able to identify what's good for them and what's bad for them by the time they're in 6th grade and on up the ladder on 4th. Basically, using pre-assessment and self-assessment would be a very big part of my lessons. I'm always going to start off a lesson by asking them a simple type of question like, who knows what type of negative consequences come with alcohol? What does alcohol do to our bodies? And I'll open the floor up for students to discuss things that they know, and also jump in when they might have a falsehood about certain things, and correct them. Self-assessment is very important for students because if you never self-assessed yourself, then you would forget who you are. Ask yourself why someone would drink alcohol is one question you would put forth to the student. You really want to make them examine deep on the issues you're covering in class. Also, I would like to be able to use more activities for my classes, simple activities that you can show really show the impact of things like one of my tobacco lessons. I have a tar jar lab experiment for them to do, and they really see how much tar can fill up a person's lungs. And I think when you get visual experiences like that sticks with students for a long time. It really holds. So I would like to be able to use all these different things in my lessons and be able to incorporate all of them into productive and I want to say productive and eager and an active and an engaged classroom environment for my students. I don't want them to just sit there and have to take notes, have to listen to me talk. I want them to be able to feel like they are a part of the class. Therefore, it will increase their morale. That the morale of the student will be increased greatly, and it will affect the learning. So if you affect the morale of the student, then you can affect the learning. And a positive teacher that can implement positive and active strategies for daily lesson planning can greatly impact the student's learning. That's the main point I want to drive home when I'm developing these lessons, is that I want my students to be able to come to their senses and realize, hey, this is more than just school, and I'm just supposed to learn this stuff about health, or I'm supposed to learn about the heart or the liver or the lungs. I want them to be able to know this for the rest of their lives, to be able to use this and deeply and actively explore the possibilities and the topics we cover in class. So, wrapping up what I'm talking about here, it just, this is my first time doing lessons, but I'm pretty firm in my philosophy of what I want to do. When I get in the classroom, I want to have students actively engaged. I want them discussing with each other across the board. I don't want one student not ever saying anything, and I don't want one student always saying something about the topic being covered. I feel like exploring into the mind is the great way for us students to overcome what's been going on in schools in the last few years. People not being very studious and whatnot. I feel like if we truly challenge ourselves that we can overcome these things and we can be the best students that we can be. And also it applies to us as teachers. We can be the best teachers we can be if we truly, truly indulge ourselves in our mind and figuring out what it is that we can accomplish with our kids. All right, that should pretty much wrap it up. Thank you very much. Have a good day.